All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to Straight Science. Straight Science is an evening seminar series put on by the University of Alaska Fairbanks Northwest Campus here in Nome, and also University of Alaska Fairbanks Alaska Sea Grant, also here in Nome. So tonight you're in the work office, and both UAF Northwest Campus and Alaska Sea Grant, we are public servants of the Bering Strait region. We serve all peoples of the region, which is the homeland and waters of the Inupiaq, St. Lawrence Island Yupik, and Central Yupik peoples. So tonight really doesn't get too much more Bering Strait than to have Joy Baker of Nome talk to us about the big project we're all wondering on and waiting for, and that is the Port of Nome. So Joy Baker is the port director and serves as the project manager for the City of Nome. She's been involved with this project since, gosh, before it was born, I think, or maybe she'll fill us in on that. But tonight we're going to hear from Joy. We'll hear about where we are, what's gone on up until 2025, as well as what we can expect in Nome during 2026. And she's open to all kinds of questions regarding the port and the project. So with that, Joy, if you want to put your video on and take it away. We're really glad you're going to give the story to us tonight.
Thanks, Gay. Howdy, folks. Yeah, as Gay said, I'm port director and project manager for the port expansion known by the Army Corps as the Port of Nome Modifications Project. And also, I serve as project manager for essentially all of the projects that the port has ongoing at various phases and levels at this time. And we have many things that go on in the background. So it's never a dull moment. Um, we'll just jump right in here. To answer Gay's question, I've been involved in pushing for the port expansion since, well, I guess back in the early 2010s. I think we started conceiving it in 2008 and 9, and then the Alaska Army Corps, the Alaska District, did a Arctic port study starting in 2011 to identify locations in the Arctic for identifying for constructing an Arctic port with enough sufficient draft to accommodate the Arctic vessels going over the top. So that's where that started. And it's proceeded along through from 2011 to where we are today in beginning construction of the deep draft Arctic port in Nome as the selected site. So I will, let's see if I can, aha, there's the right button. Got it. Okay, I wanted to give an overview to start us off here that, we've been an Army Corps port since the early 1900s. As you can see here, they constructed the timber walls of the old channel starting in 1917. They came in and replaced those timber walls with steel piling in 1952, and then relocated the entrance channel to where you see in the photo today in '06. Then through a number of heavy lifts and pushing a rock uphill, we were able to finally achieve authorizing the project in 2020 through the Water Resources Development Act, which they call the WRDA bill, through the Remote and Subsistence Harbors authorization in WRDA 2007. So we finally achieved, which was a monumental achievement in 2020. The city executed the design agreement with the Corps in 21, executed a partner agreement with the Corps in 24, and the Corps was able to award Phase 1A to Kiewit in 25, and Phase 1 construction begins this summer. Because of the short season and the heavy mobilization, what we'll see this first season is the site mold to set up their crushers, their workforce camp, and their lay down for the rock. It's quite an operation to get everything staged and set up and operational. They'll be staging, hauling and mining, hauling and staging the armor stone, as well as setting up their crushers and starting to make the core rock, the surface rock, the rest of the materials that are involved with what will begin in the 27 season for um, ripping out the nose of the existing causeway so they can start laying rock and building outward towards sea for the 1,200-foot armor stone extension, the breakwater, and the 600-foot dock that they will build in their phase 1A phase. A lot of folks are confused by the partnership that we have with the Corps. So this little impromptu org chart just gives a little bit of a breakdown of showing the partnership between the city and the Corps. And on the left side under the city, there's the port with a sub contract with P&D Engineers for the design of the dock and the road. And then the utilities also has oversight of their engineering group who have designed the utilities in the overall port expansion there, but there are no utilities currently in phase 1A, but there will be in the rest of the causeway extension, which it will be phase 1B, and then phase 3 will also have utilities. So but this is the overall modification project partnerships organization. Our team has construction oversight over the local service facilities, again, the docks, roads, and utilities. And then on the right, the Corps has contract management oversight for the contractor, and then the general navigation features, which they control, which are the breakwaters and the dredging. So phase 1A is just a component of this org chart that you see here, but this reflects the total project organization for all phases. Speaking of all phases, here we go. Phase 1A on the left is what is being built this year. It was awarded in August of 25. The 1,200-foot breakwater, 600-foot dock, which we will see in larger detail on the next slide. Phase 2 is the dredging for the entire overall, for the majority of the expansion. There will be some additional dredging in phase 3. We anticipate this phase being put out to bid, advertised in September of this year, and awarded in February of next, providing all the stars align and things continue to proceed the way they are at this time. Phase 1 Bravo will complete phase 1 and take the West Causeway extension all the way out to its designed length and build a total of a 2,200, almost 2,300-foot causeway extension with an 1,870-foot dock. On top of the dock, we've got being built in phase 1A. They will join together. We expect advertising sometime in fiscal year 28. That's that's how the most that the Corps is willing to nail that down now. There are too many moving parts at this time. Phase 3 is pushed out beyond that. We'll remove the east breakwater existing, relocate further east and build a new breakwater with 400-foot docks and dredge that expanded basin in the existing outer harbor. Projections now push that out into 2030. Here's the phase 1A layout, a little more detail. same size, 1,200 foot, 600 foot dock. Existing spur removal, which is the tip of the existing causeway here. That rock tip will be removed in August, September of 26, so that when the contractor comes in, they can take the nose apart and start building out in 27. Anticipate completion in 29. And again, no utilities in this phase. This is the land use that is currently contracted to the project contractor, Kiewit. You've got this upper section here north of the tank farms, what we call the Thornbush property. They've got those chunks set aside for rock laydown and other project staging. This left section here, SA1, is for disposal of spoils, dredge spoils. That will be removed as what they call the excavation of the toe, where they will drive the sheet pile in phase 1. They also have an approved permitted site offshore, which is off of this picture here, further south of the facility, where the Corps has successfully permitted an offshore disposal site. So they will have the option of disposing some of the spoils on shore as well as offshore. The second arrow targets an area around what we call our Garco building, where they will be using for maintenance. They've got a beach side here where they can stage rock. And then for phase 3, they've got areas on the east side of the river that they can stage rock for that expansion. We'll move on to some of the vessel activity and statistics for the port. Here's an idea for some of you that haven't seen this shot. This gives you an idea of the ships that we see for Arctic vessels. Some of them come over the top, some of them stop in Nome and then go over the top, and others just come up and do a West Alaska coast tour and Bering Sea, and then go back south and don't have any Northwest Passage activity on their itinerary. This is on this top right picture, that is actually a Coast Guard vessel coming in for a port call, a shore leave and resupply, with another cruise ship here coming into dock. The cruise ship here in the middle, cruise ship on the bottom right, another cruise ship on the top left, and then the NOAA ship on the bottom left that come up for their scientific and research missions. For the vessel calls, we've got on the bottom left shows you the increasing vessel traffic, the total number of days that are docked at the facility. And the orange down here does not correlate to the orange on the right. That's a salmon color, just totaling up the calls. The orange on the bottom left is the total number of days we have vessels anchored. And some years we have an extensive amount of vessels either too deep to come in to the existing facility, or they are waiting their turn to get to the dock. The chart, the table on the top right gives an idea of the breakdown of the different types of vessels and their numbers through over the last 5 years. Our home ported fleet in the bottom second from bottom row, and then the total number of vessels. As you can see, it continues to climb. It's increased 54% since 21. This slide gives you information on our commodity stats. Moving cargo, fuel, and gravel throughout the facility, and with obviously the gravel's an export number. Bottom right shows you the number of fuel gallons over the last 5 years. Bottom left, it shows you cargo in blue and the gravel numbers, which are we saw an exemplary year in 21, and the numbers are picking up again with the rock export to gravel. I'm sorry, to Barra, and then some other crushed gravel exports, and we do have some sand also going out this summer for 26 numbers. Moving into some of our active port projects besides the port expansion, here is some active development going on at the industrial pad. We've got, these are the facility, this is the existing field pad up on the Thornbush overall site. And what you see on the left here is, I got to quit clicking my mouse, is the unfilled area. The eastern portion of that to the right is going to be, has been assigned to the port expansion, and a section over here on the left will be, is soon to be filled in order to capitalize on the demand for laydown while the project is ongoing. The demand is significant. This Air Force lot in the green on the right, we have active plans. Just got the grading plan in my inbox yesterday. We're going to be developing this site in order to stage equipment and armor stone on this site. We are also looking into south of these four tanks here, are the utilities. The two white ones are Crowley. We are looking into filling this site south of those tanks this summer and have additional upgrades to the existing pad, this container lot here. We have existing upgrades to the west bank as well as to our boatyard. And we intend to, on the Air Force lot, take this west perimeter fence down and push this area, this laydown area, surfacing back to the toe of the existing upper pad on the industrial pad storage park. I'm hoping you guys can see my mouse move here.
We can. It's small, but we can see your mouse. It's good.
Okay, good. I'll try to keep moving it. This area here, which is north of this long Quonset hut, are the uplands that we'll be developing with the Snake River Moorage project that we just received USDOT grant funds for. So there's quite a bit of laydown development happening simultaneously this summer. And whatever isn't completed this summer will blend into 27. The demand for laydown is significant as we've had to assign these other field areas to the project as part of our commitment partnership to the contract to provide laydown for the contractor to stage their equipment and materials. Another project that is ongoing, the Snake River Moorage project I just mentioned, we were granted let me think here. I've got so many projects moving in my mind, I have to narrow down to the one I'm talking about. $13 million grant from USDOT with a $3 million match by the city. We have just received word that $1 million of that will be cost shared with the Denali Commission. We have 300,000 cost shared by this adjacent private property owner as a contribution, and we are talking with multiple other entities in Nome right now for assisting the city with the remaining 2 million, and that is making progress. This LiDAR shot here is kind of cool. It shows an idea of what the facility is going to look like after it's constructed. 1,700 feet of floating docks, a 7-acre basin dredged to 8 feet. Uplands equal about 1.23 acres with potable water, power, garbage, restrooms, and parking. We're just about to wrap up the NEPA process. That we had to go back and do some additional consultations as the Maritime Administration was not satisfied with the level of consults that were done by the Army Corps when we had our permit renewed back in 2020, I believe it was. We have design concepts. We are moving forward with the 65 and then 95% design while that is happening in parallel with the NEPA process. We anticipate executing the grant in the fall and then finalizing design shortly after that and bidding construction through the winter. We're hoping to award construction in February 27 and have the contract can procure materials through March and July, begin dredging and construction of the uplands starting in April, May, and then mobilize the floats for shipping in by the last barge of 27. And we anticipate construction to be complete and closing out the project by December. So it's an optimistic schedule. It's possible that depending on how the stars align on the schedule you see here, it's possible we could have to ship the floats in by spring of 28, and then they would be launched. They will be removable floats, so if they come in too late in 27, then we won't install them. And again, they'll go in 28, and then the project will close out in 28. There's a number of other projects we have going on at concept level. Looks a little busy, but I'm going to start with this center one here that has the red rectangle. That is anticipated to be a shower and laundry facility at the corner of Sepulveda and Belmont here, right behind the harbor master office. The location is still concept idea where we think this is going to be where it would be built, but again, this is all 35% design and concept level for planning. We've expended the funds to reach this concept level, but we will be pursuing grant funds for full design and construction, and we haven't yet targeted a funding vehicle. But as the grant NOFOs are released, we'll either be pursuing an application this summer, fall, or next spring. A lot of the NOFOs are issued in the first part of the year. On the left-hand side here is what we call a Belmont Point development. And right now it's just a beach line. Those of you that live here know that. This would add some armor stone, small armor stone, as a protective barrier with some picnic facilities, fish cleaning, and a boat launch up at the top, the north end, and fishing from the vehicles, from the rocks here, and then additional parking. So obviously this is concept, and with more input from the locals, this will likely come to fruition because this is a great use of this part of the facility in the Snake River. Another look just south of the Snake River, south and west of where the Snake River entrance goes into the inner harbor, and just north of the Causeway Bridge. This is an expansion idea of this. There's an existing armor stone cobblestone wall that ties this beach line here. We would develop this into a barge access and boat launch so that folks don't have to wait for the river and inner harbor to thaw in the spring, and they can actually operate and fish longer in the fall, because this area of the port stays ice free later than the inner harbor does, and it's an additional way to launch vessels besides the existing concrete ramp on the west side of the inner harbor, and will also allow for heavy equipment to be driven on and off the barge and haul out for simple barge repairs. Obviously, we're not going to be able to haul out the entire barge, but we can do with airbags, we can do minor hull repairs at this site. We're actually looking forward to this one, and we'll continue to pursue design and engineering, as this is an exceptional sorry, I'm starting to wind down. My brain's about done here. I guess I shouldn't have gone into work so early this morning. This is a great addition to the facility, and will expand this uplands here instead of trying to isolate all the activity to happen at the existing barge ramp and high ramp. Demand has driven the need for this additional property. Over in the top right, I'll switch over to the Harbor Master office and uplands development. This development plan came before we decided a good place for the shower and laundry facility would be behind the Harbor Master office. But because all of this area is, and all of these project plans are conceptual, we could easily modify the plans we have here and revise them to accommodate having this shower and laundry facility. But this would provide more parking, more organization for storage for crab pots, and more equipment and container areas for the port to store our items, and open up this access on Belmont Street to just make this entire area more usable. Bottom right is what we've identified as the River Street Visitor Facility for the sort of a staging area for the cruise ship passengers to come in, to be bussed in, and have an area where they can, in addition to the old St. Joe's facility and the Anvil City Park, they would have an area that they could do interpretive, a pavilion with interpretive signage, where they could learn more about the City of Nome and Nome's history, and have access to restrooms, indoor facilities to get out of the weather, and run possible dog tours and gold panning, and then you have a central location by which to launch their external tours on the roads and other facilities outside of town. This one here, also a cruise ship terminal, and this would be out on the expansion of the port, out in the deep water basin along the new dock, where those that come off the vessel can actually have a little bit of a recon place to connect, and then load the buses and drive off, because they won't be able to walk from this facility due to the industrial operations. But it does give them some place to get off the vessel. Instead of standing out in the rain, we'll have cover for them with some signage and restrooms that we can easily, that'll be seasonal, and we can dismantle this operation and put the items away in the event that we have cargo container ships moving graphite, fuel tankers, etc. So a lot of concept planning, but obviously you got to start there in order to meet the development needs of the facility. There's some marine traffic stats and graphs, kind of like what Gay and I were talking about earlier for another Straight Science show is coming up for statistics. This is just recently received from the Marine Exchange of Alaska, who have the coolest operation since sliced bread. Those of you that don't know about them, research those guys. They are a wealth of information and very beneficial to have for our type of operations. So this shows the Bering Strait traffic and again, an increase in 25, 5 more vessel total transits, north and south, and they just keep going up. Again, over on the right, you can see the graphics and the different colors. It's kind of hard to break them out, but the different colors for the different types of industry that are traveling through the Bering Strait. You get a little snapshot here of what's happening at the city, the Port of Nome, and you slide it to the next one. This is actually the Port of Nome vessel traffic, what they call offshore, and then what's happening just out at the breakwater. I'm not sure why they break this out, but the color schemes really give you an idea of just how much traffic is transiting at the facility every year. This snapshot here is just as spider webbed as 24 and 23. It's a busy place. And here's a cartoon rendering of what the completed port expansion will look like when it's done. It's not to scale, but it gives you an idea of how it's going to look. And that is my last slide, gang.
All right. Well, thank you, Joy, for that. Look. Thank you, Joy, for that rundown of the concept projects and timelines. So what is the final timeline? If everything goes as planned, when are we done with the whole thing?
The whole thing. You mean
The whole
this
port?
entire project?
Yep, the whole thing.
The big picture.
Yeah.
2032, 3, if I had to guess on phase 3 being completed. For all the concept projects that the city is working on, no, I couldn't tell you. It's all
Okay.
contingent on funding, but the port expansion itself, what you're looking at here is the Army Corps project, phases 1A through 3. That is, I would say that each year it shifts a bit, and it's all contingent on federal funding and local funding, but I'd say phase 3 could maybe finished in 2033. Could be 34. Hard
Okay.
to say.
Hard to say. All right.
Hard.
Well, thank you, Joy. Before we do that, let's thank our speaker. So this is usually, I got out of order there, so I'm so interested in the port. So, um, if you want to show some love for our speaker in the chat or with the emoji things that I can't, I don't know how you guys do those. But
Well,
anyway, because it's never easy to be a public speaker, and Joy has worked a full day, and now she's making the time to talk to all of us. So that's very good. And we really appreciate that, Joy. So you're getting lots of clapping and whatnot, and even some comments in the chat.
I appreciate it. I love this job. I love the work. I just I go in early at like 6:30 and it's been a long day.
I'm sure it has been getting towards the end of the week. So, And now we'll open it up to questions. I know I've got questions, but we'll throw it open to anyone else. You can put them in the chat or you can ask them. Some people even know how to raise their hands. We don't have any callers, so that's good. We don't have to worry about a caller who can't be heard. Any questions? All right, Shannon Jenkins, you've got the floor. Lead off.
Hey, I always wait to see if others are going to jump in first. I always have questions. Joy, a couple quick things for you. First, easy question. Your 2025 vessel port calls, you went from almost no government vessels to 20. Who was part of that 20 that came in for the government? I'm assuming those are Coast Guard, NOAA, what other government entities, and what kind of ship makeup was that?
Shannon, I will have to pull that while we're here talking because, yeah, I'll have to go look.
Just curious.
Well, mostly government and, that would include foreign government as well.
That's
You've
why I
got
was
all,
wondering.
you've got all the government, so the icebreakers and, the Canadian icebreakers and that come through. Let me go, look. Yes, Kay.
And also, I would add, not only Deb, we had foreign government, Shannon, in the area, but we also have had several military drills at sea. So both on the Russian side and in the U.S. waters. So we've had multiple, I think we've had Operation Dagger, Northern Edge, so various trainings, and we'll actually see gray hulled vessels now. So not in the port, but in the people are reporting that. And you see vessels, but they're not showing up on the AIS, things like that. So I would imagine that's a lot of that uptick of military vessels, but I could be wrong there. Does that
Yeah,
help?
just if you get a chance, just like to see what that is, just to make up. Another quick question is, with all the construction, what is that going to do to your port call availability? How many ships are you going to be able to still handle the same capacities, or is that going to be a limiting factor when you're doing all this construction?
Actually, the agreement with the Corps and the contractor is that, we're going to try and minimize the impact of our operations to construction and vice versa. So we're anticipating being able to meet demand. That's our intent, and that's what we told our vessel operators and carriers is that we're going to be able to accommodate them. And there may be some delays, but we intend to keep those to a minimum because we're a pretty important facility in order to transship all the cargo throughout the region in order for folks to meet their schedules for the cruise ships and the research missions. Um, the shore leave calls that we're now being told we're going to see for the Coast Guard, which has been a while. Nice to see those again. We know people have schedules to keep, and we're intending to meet that demand so that they can keep those schedules. And we're going to be working constantly with a contractor every day. We're going to give, so they've got a little more, and then they're going to give when we need a little more, and we're just going to make it work.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Shannon. And Charlie, your hand is up. You've got the floor.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I thought that was great news, Joy. The idea that the grant money has come in for the small boat harbor construction, Snake River um, floats and that, and so that's something I've been waiting on for years. So anyway, that's new in case people didn't know. So
Yes, yes. Just the Denali Commission money was new just last week. But
yep.
they've been we put in for gap funding and that they awarded $1 million. So we're pretty stoked about it.
Yes. No, I have to put a plug in for Joy. She's been the city stalwart person on the port for for uh, I don't know, 30, 40 years. She's really carried the water first as a harbor master, first as an accountant, then the harbor master, then the port director. So anyway, thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Charlie. You're giving away my age.
Yeah. Oh, and not more than 80. Yeah.
Just a number. Um, all right, let me see. Any other questions? I know I've got one. I've had several people come up to me here at the campus and say, where do we sign up for work? And I don't know if that's something I know that's contracted to Kiewit to do the work. Where do people go, or do you have any direction or intel to give on where do you go to sign up?
I don't think they have a place where they're taking signups. I think if people want to inquire about work, they should probably call their Anchorage office. I mean, we're
Call the
not
Kiewit.
being, yeah, I mean, yeah, we're not being given information about that. The
Okay,
contractor's taking care of that themselves.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, though. That's helpful. Trees and dirt. Go ahead. You've got the floor.
Not anything official or anything, but I did have a conversation with someone last week regarding employment and that, um, if one was to go over to the Bering Straits Native Corporation office downstairs, toward the back of the building, they have an office there. Brian James is the workforce development person. There is a list being compiled by people who express an interest in employment with Kiewit. Kiewit is going to check in with them. Again, I don't know how that plays out in practical hiring and stuff like that, but that is an avenue for people to investigate if they're looking to find a way to apply with Kiewit on the project.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that's the Bering Straits Native Corporation building on Front Street, first floor.
Yes. Yep, that's right. If you just walk straight past GCI to the back of the building, they're there.
Okay. All right. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you. Some good intel right there.
Yes.
And there you have a question in the chat. Will the infill between the tanks owned by utilities and Crowley and the beach impact the cemetery and the 1918 influenza gravesite area? And for those of you who don't know online, we have a mass grave that's a memorial. It also has a memorial little park area on the beach. That was a big bad event throughout this part of the world in 1918. Will the infill between the tanks impact the cemetery and the 1918 influenza gravesite?
Yeah, I just responded in the chat, but I'm happy to verbalize it. No, we fully intend to completely avoid any impact at all to that site.
Awesome. Okay.
And we're just looking into this now. We're not actually going to be filling it anytime soon. We'll be talking with Sit and Sock about that before we even move forward with the project.
All right. And there's also a question from Jim Dory. I'm hoping a boat lift, travel lift, question mark, can be incorporated into that development just north of the Causeway Bridge, where you will also have a ramp. I talked with Lucas, that's our harbor master. I talked with Lucas about it and said NSCDC, the Norton Sound Economic Development Corporation, that's our CDQ group, could possibly be interested in such. It would be great for pulling out sailboats and other similar sized craft. Your drawing was small, so maybe it was there. But I couldn't see it.
I'm typing him an answer too, but I'll go ahead and tell folks, yeah,
But,
the
well,
idea.
yeah, it's just good you don't have to type it back because I'm sure he's listening.
Yeah, Jim, the idea is to have a travel lift, a boat lift at that facility. Obviously, finding someone to operate it like NSCDC or another interested contractor will be essential, but right now the plan is for that to be included. Because, and that's one of the primary reasons for establishing the site in that location.
All right. Jim Dory gave you the thumbs up, so that answered his question. Thank you. I I've got an odd question. Maybe that's not surprising, but well, I'm curious how far offshore is the offshore disposal site? And I'll tell you why in a sec.
I'll have to, I don't have an exact distance, Gay, in my head.
Okay, that's fine. But somewhere right in front of Nome offshore. And then the second one is to take some of those dredge tailings or whatever you call them up into the Thornbush area, sort of to the west, and plop it down right there. Is that right?
Yes, and we've done that before in the
So
past.
one of the things I just remember, I never thought of this, but there were people have been asking the whole time, well, who is there gold down in there that didn't get picked up in the 1900 excitement? And and so is that something, or is there any plans on who or what anybody go through those?
Um,
Is that a city
no,
thing?
I'm trying to formulate the right answer.
Okay.
The Army Corps has continued to downplay any ideas of trying to mine the materials that are coming out of the floor. As a federal project that they're in control of, they're saying it's not going to happen.
Mine.
They don't have a mechanism by which to do that in
Okay.
their federal programs. They can't do that. So that's what they've been telling us every time this comes up.
Oh, I'm sure it's a different question. Okay, well, that's interesting because I've heard people talking about, well, man, we better get in there. So thank you for that. That was just my oddball question because people have wondered a lot when you're digging that all up and putting it somewhere. Maybe others can do something with that. I don't know. And then in the chat, Jim Dory writes, sewer system still needs an upgrade to be compliant with accepting waste off ships, as I understand it. Is the city talking about that at all?
Yes, that is still on the docket, but we have phased the port reception facility planning so that the first phase of that is to develop an incinerator to take the galley waste, the regulated waste off the ships. Phase two will be to start moving into the liquid waste you're talking about, Jim. And it's under, at this time, it appears that there will be need that we would have a separate processing facility for the marine waste off the ship, separate from the utilities. So there isn't enough capacity for us to combine those facilities. Let me rephrase that. There isn't enough capacity. We can't combine the marine volumes with the existing community volumes. There's sufficient capacity in the utilities to accommodate what the community needs now and in the future. We cannot add the marine volumes to it. We need to not utilize their existing capacity that they built into the system years ago. We can't tie that up with the marine volume. So the port ship waste will be processed through a separate standalone new facility.
All right. Then that'll be through incineration or new port sewage.
It'll
Is that what you're?
it'll be through a liquid waste process. No, not incineration is for the solid waste.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like there's a different.
Settling and aeration and that type. Similar to what goes on with the lagoons, most likely. We're still in the
Okay.
stages.
So a separate sewer system for the port, for ship waste. I'm sure the
Correct.
port's already hooked up to the city. Okay. Thank you. Charlie, your hand is up. You have
Yeah,
the floor.
I just remember the waste that was, I'm not, the tailings that were dumped from the construction of the current port. And I was working at Fish and Game down, Midtown, and the pile that was developed, from dredging was placed roughly in front of the Fish and Game building, but out at 20 feet of depth or so. And that, at when we got a north wind, the surface of the tailings broke broke the surface of the ocean. I mean, it was a lot of spoils put there, and it washed down in a matter of a year or two. But we temporarily had a small island in front of Nome. Um, the that that has disappeared, and it's not. You can't find it on the depth finders anymore. So I don't know if people are dredging out there or not, but I suspect they are. That's where that would be the other way for people to discover gold from the dredging, was to mine the mine the spoils later, a year or two later after it's concentrated.
The offshore
Yes.
stuff you're thinking?
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking you got two different piles. Yeah. Interesting. Thanks.
So anyway, that was a big worry at the time because it impacted the subsistence crab zone that we just created in front of Nome, and we were worried that that would interrupt crab fishing. But it within a 5 year interval, it was undetectable. It was pretty amazing. So anyway, that's all.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. You actually make me think of a sure I'm not cutting anyone off here. You make me think of a question. I don't know, Joy, if you can show that the phases, it goes 1A, 2, 2B, 3.
No 2B, 1B.
Or I'm sorry, 1B.
Yeah,
But it goes,
let me put in a little bit of clarity before we jump there.
okay.
The contractors that are awarded each of the phases, whomever they may be, will have the option to use the uplands facility or the offshore disposal site. It'll be an option for them to select which one they wish to use. So I'll bring that back up.
And my question just is in the order of things. And I think you did a good job showing it, but my question might be more for the Corps of Engineers, because my understanding is that 1A, which is this summer or this summer and setting up, and then next summer shoot. Are we going to actually see the jetty go out, the causeway, West Causeway go out, or are we just going to be setting up cranes and things like that this year? I don't know. But whatever. Phase 1 is to get that the West Causeway southbound. Yeah, there we go. That's it. So the west, yeah,
Right.
it looks like the west. There we go. Thank you. So the west, yeah, we'll see that either start this year and then for the next year or two, that's going to be happening, right?
In 26, this little spur, what they call this spur, this little tip of rocks that goes southeast off of the inline causeway,
Yeah.
is going to be removed. August, September. That's all. That's the only in-water work that's going to occur.
But we'll see lots of setup and things like that. I mean, what
There's
people
going
can
to be a lot
expect
of
to see.
shoreside setup
Yeah.
in various areas around town, around
Okay.
the port and out at the quarries, and I mean not just the quarry, but the gravel pits, and then in 27 they will start building out the breakwater in green here, and then start the dock when they actually get to that point, and that'll go 27, 28, and the Corps believes it'll blend into 29. We'll have to see how fast the contractor can get it built.
So then if you go back back to the 1, 2, 3, and then phase two, this is the part my question is, because when Charlie was just talking about the dredging and the island and the washing out, and somewhere we're putting a pile of fines offshore potentially. So phase two is then we do phase two and then we do phase 1B? Or is it going to go phase 1A, phase 1B, back to two? Or is this chronological?
They're in the order. If you look at the dates, they're in the order of construction.
Okay. All right. So here's my question is we're going to dredge. Phase two is dredging all that green out, but we have no West Causeway and no east-west dogleg. So knowing that we have some of these big typhoons now and whatnot, it's not up to the city. I think this is probably the Corps planning. They're all right with dredging that and then putting in phase 1B, which is going to be 2028, putting in that dog leg. They're not going to lose. They feel pretty secure they won't lose the edge there and have to redo that.
Well,
Dredging.
technically, if you look closely at phase two, you can see the natural contours of depth are actually beyond the minus 40 foot that they have to dredge the expansion to. If you look here, right here, this is
Hard to see.
minus 35,
Okay.
minus 40, and minus 45. They figure there's going to be some level of dredging here in front of this 1A dock.
All right.
And they will have the option, and they're working on that now, as to what they award as a base, the base project for dredging. The base could be the existing outer harbor. They're going to dredge that to minus 26. And this would be the options to award after the base is done. They're not sure. So, I mean, they're trying to determine the best plan. And once the further out they go, the less dredging is going to be needed
Right.
because you're getting into the natural contours. So once they build 1 Bravo, and if there's cleanup to do for dredging, they can always contract that out or have that done when phase 3 is done, as there will be dredging with that phase 2. But, you know, these are still some of the unknowns that haven't been finalized yet, and that's why all we have out now is 1A. But they're not concerned about losing a significant amount of depth, because the depth out here that they've surveyed has remained pretty consistent even without a breakwater there.
Right.
So they're thinking the cleanup necessary will be minimal. But that's the
All right.
thinking now. It remains to be seen, and how soon 1 Bravo follows phase 2.
Right. And that's really helpful for my brain, Joy, because I was thinking, they're going to dredge it. And then I just remember when we had the Merbach, or something like Halong comes along again. But Merbach, where the waves were just rolling down that east causeway or breakwater. So that's a big,
Yeah,
I think about those pounding
and
southerlies.
they just gave us the pre-dredge survey, which actually goes outside the mouth of the port entrance, and the depths are not much different from the post-dredge and pre-dredges last year. So the change has not been significant.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. There is a question in the chat from Diane K. Is there any concern for increased dust with the dredge tailing dumps on land, as it is in close proximity to the airport? I hadn't thought of that one. That's an interesting one, because dust is a big topic right now too, for lots of reasons.
There has not been. The quantity that is currently involved in phase 1A is minimal. It's a small quantity. There hasn't been any discussion about how much that may or may not add in dust because the contractor also has the option to take it to the offshore disposal site. So no, there hasn't been a specific discussion about levels of dust increasing if they choose to haul it up to the thornbush pad and dispose. Like I said, because the dock is so small in this phase, the quantity of spoils is not very significant.
All
One
right.
Bravo, it will be, and most likely why they will be, I suspect, disposing of all the spoils on One Bravo offshore, but it will be up to the contractor that is awarded that project.
Well, and it's good you can put dust abatement as a topic of concern that came up with the public right here. We've got a lot of dust concerns from all the traffic, the rock traffic from not just this project, but a lot of the other things that are going on in the region and Nome. So,
But dust is also the responsibility of the contractor to, as well as other port users, the city waters the road too. So everybody has a responsibility of maintaining the road from any disturbances that are caused by their activity. And if there are
that's great,
multiple people using the roads, then they share that responsibility.
including the tailing dump. So that's good. Thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you, Diane K, for that. Any other questions? We're at the 7:30 mark. Questions, comments, anything for Joy? Last but not least, any word when the fuel barge is coming? Everybody's talking about the fuel. What's it going to cost? I
No
know
idea.
you know the cost, but when's the fuel barge come?
We don't have confirmed dates yet.
Ooh, I hope that means they're still coming. I mean,
Oh, well,
honestly.
they're coming, but
Okay.
they're not going to confirm dates until they know their lift dates when they lift the product, and then they know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no confirmed dates yet for the dock.
Okay. All right. No confirmed dates. Well, with that, thank you, Joy. And if you want to stick around for 1 second longer, when everybody signs off, that would be great. For next, yeah, a round of applause for Joy and City of Nome for her update on the Port of Nome. And for next week, next Straight Science will be on Wednesday night, June 17th. And then we're going to have Kelly Capsar. She is a a Michigan State University student. She's been studying industrial ship traffic in the strait itself from 2015 to 2024. Shannon, sounds like she could answer your question. She's going to be talking about industrial ship traffic and the types of ships, what countries they belong to, where they're going, when they're going. And she's going to give an overview from 2015 to 2024 of industrial ship traffic in the strait. And she will talk about specifically how the traffic is changing and why. So that may be of interest to you if you can. All right, thumbs up. Yep, if you can, I'll make sure you get a notification on that. And she may be able to answer also your question right there regarding the military and such. With that, thank you so much, everyone, for coming, and we'll see you next Wednesday evening, June 17th. Have a good night, everyone.